no. Now wait a minute. Now hold on. I realize.
All right. Well, if you're going to take your soapbox, you need to go ahead and take it, and because I want to deal with another issue related to you.
Okay.
To you. Oh, I thought that one.
I realize that I'm just a sidekick. If I had known what I was, anyway.
Too late now.
During Obama, I think I know where you're going.
Well, just get on your soapbox, and then we'll discuss that now.
During his first election, when he was first running for president, I made no bones. I'm a Republican. I'm a registered Republican. I'm not the same Republican my dad was, but I'm a Republican.
That's the point I want to make.
But I considered. I was vehemently against the war in Iraq. I didn't think we needed to go into Iraq. I still don't think it was a good idea. And Senator McCain, when he was running, he made the statement several times that his doctrine on the war, his philosophy on the war would be the same as Bush's. So I considered not voting for McCain because at this time nobody knew much about Obama. I mean, this was before he changed his position on same-sex marriage. Nobody knew much about him. He was young. He was charismatic. And also, for me, I have very passionate ideas about the civil rights movement. I'm from the South, and most of my views go contrary to what a large portion of the South believes. But I have very passionate ideas about the civil rights movement and racial equality. And I thought that it was a wonderful thing that in less than 60 years, this country went from the unrest of the civil rights movement to voting in an African American man for the highest office in the land. I thought that was a wonderful thing. And so all these things were in my head, and I considered voting for. I considered it. I did not vote for Barack Obama.
Well, here's the point I want to bring in, and I'm through chastising you over that now. Well, at least for now. The point that I'm trying to get to here is this. It was your age group that elected me.
Yes.
You know, Paul, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38 years old. I believe it's the 40 and below group that put him in office.
Yes.
And it just the fact, now Paul comes from a very, I've known him just about all of his life, and he comes from a very strong fundamentalist background. Very strong.
Bible fundamentalist.
Almost extreme.
Yes.
And so to go to that degree, you know, the statements that he just made, I believe would probably cover most of your age group. You know, probably most of your age group had similar thoughts about that very incident. The fact of how wonderful, what a great change, and that was the catchword at that time in the election, the previous election, the change that was coming about. And I guess the thing that I'm getting at here, well, let me preface that. Let me say this along with that. About probably 20 years ago, 20 or 25 years ago, my wife and I, no, it couldn't have been 25, it had been at least 20, let's say 18 to 20 years ago. My wife and I were in a church in the Atlanta, Georgia area, a large church in the Atlanta, Georgia area. We were in a mission conference. And they had a man there, they had a lawyer. He said he billed himself as a Philadelphia lawyer, whatever that means. He was a Philadelphia lawyer. And he was speaking. He made a statement that I've never forgotten in this 18 to 20 years. He gave an analogy. He said and then it was the 40 and above, my age group, back 20 years ago. I'm 60 now. He said the 40 and above relate from a perpendicular relationship. In other words, authority, up and down the scale of authority.
Up and down the chain.
And the 40 and below, 20 years ago he said this, relate horizontally, and that is what's more important to the 40 and below was fellowship. It was friendship. It was relationships. And I took note of that, and I began observing that, and I found that to be absolutely true in the generation that's now.
Yes.
And so, and of course, President Obama definitely relates. Yes. You know, that is the big thing with him. And you were telling me something when we were on the break, or before we got on the air, about his previous election, about what was it you were saying in regards to his meetings, his that he would be in? People fainting, treating him like a rock star.
People were fainting. That they would roll him out on stretchers. People would actually have fainting spells because he was so. And look, and the reason I bring that out is because again, I have nothing personal against the man. Oh, okay, we have a caller. I'll get back to that later.
That's all right. We have John on the line. John says you would like to talk about what your pastor said about President Obama. Is that correct?
All right, I'd like to comment on that. I believe that to be the case. I believe that's probably what's going on. But I take a little bit of a different position, perhaps, than just, you. And I believe Bible prophecy, and I believe everything it says in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and I do believe that that's probably what's happening now. In fact, I've made that statement myself in regards to that God is using these types of situations to bring to pass the end of time and the coming of Christ, and that's going to happen. But here's a step further that I take it. It doesn't have to happen now. It's kind of like in the days of Josiah. The kings, there were two kings prior to Josiah, and during, I believe it's Amnon's reign, God pronounced judgment. He said because of the wickedness that he had led the people to perform, that he had brought about in the land of Israel, God said, I'm going to judge the land. You're going to be judged. The people are going to be judged. You're going into captivity. That's it. Well, Josiah came on the scene and brought about revival. Josiah came on the scene. He was a good king, and God used him, and he put down the idols in the land. He called the people to righteousness, and there was a revival that took place. Now, God did judge Israel, but he postponed that judgment for another 100 years. And so our responsibility as Christians is to step up to the plate. We're not to be apathetic and passive in the sense that, oh, well, it's Bible prophecy being fulfilled. Jesus is coming, and we'll just look for the rapture. I really think that is not the way that we're to approach this thing. I believe we're to take an active position and an active stand for righteousness in every generation. And when God brings about, when the end time does get here, and if it's next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, or 100 years from now, so be it.
And to your point, in Ezekiel 22, when God judged Israel, but he could no longer stay his judgment. He could no longer stay his judgment because he found no one to stand in the gap. He said, I sought for a man to stand in the gap, and I found none. So if you look at it this way, Christ is coming back.
Let me read that verse real quick.
Okay.
The whole verse. He says, I sought for a man among them, among the people, the princes, the priests. He said, I sought for a man among them to stand to make up the hedge and to stand in the gap before me. In other words, somebody to pray to God that he wouldn't destroy the land before me, that I should not destroy it, but I found none. Sad words.
And so if you look at it, the way I look at it is, I have family members. Who are not saved. I have friends and loved ones and relatives, distant relatives, acquaintances who I know are not saved by their own mouth, by what they profess to believe they are not saved. So my desire is to stand in the gap and ask God to stay His judgment. Now Christ is coming back. He knows when He's coming back. God knows when He's coming back. I mean, and it's going to head in that direction. But to Brother Dewey's point, my job is to stand in the gap for my family and give out the gospel as long as I can. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the Lord to stay as judge. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that at all. Even though we know it's coming and it's going to happen exactly the way He wants to happen, the way like Brother Dewey said, it's our job to stand for righteousness in every generation.
And in all the time. I
Yes.
mean, it's our responsibility to stand for righteousness. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I would take it one step further. I would say that apathy is a sin.
Yes.
To just sit back apathetic and say, oh, well, it's going to happen anyway. That's why, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but that's why I'm not a Calvinist. You know, that everything's happened, that everything's got a plan and a purpose and a time, and everything's going to happen whether you choose or not. I have a choice. God left me with a choice, and and that choice gives me a responsibility.
And some people's idea in Christian circles, quote unquote, is that if I do nothing, He'll come back quicker.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely not. I'm going to do nothing. So, but Joe, listen, we thank you for your comments, and we thank you for participating in our show today. And it's just, you know, our job is to stand in the gap. That's what our job is to do.
Yeah. We appreciate you calling, John. Appreciate you listening. Well, you keep listening, you keep calling in. We appreciate it.
For what he was thinking, there's probably 100 other people that were like, "Oh, I get it now."
Right.
You know, so well worth it.
And that's what we're all about here, John. We appreciate it. You too, buddy. All right, we're taking a break, John. I think it's time.
We'll take a quick sponsorship break, and we'll be back right here on the Issues of Life radio show on Truth Radio WTGF 90.5.